There's a little bit of bad news being reported by Deadline for MCU fans. They have a new article titled Disney-Sony Standoff Ends Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige's Involvement in Spider-Man. Now, there was a rumor going around that the contract between Sony and Marvel included a clause to extend the contract if Spider-Man Far From Home earned more than $1 billion. And as we can see here, Spider-Man Far From Home has actually earned more than $1 billion, earned $1.1 billion right now, and it just became the biggest Sony film ever, overtaking Skyfall. So it is currently the 26th biggest film of all time without any sort of inflation, with $1.109 billion, and Skyfall $1.108 billion was the biggest film from Sony. So with that rumor in place saying that if it earns over $1 billion, this would all be sorted out and it would still be part of the MCU, it looks like that may not be the case. Let's take a look at the actual article to see what it reports. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige won't produce any further Spider-Man films because of an inability by Disney and Sony Pictures to reach new terms that would have given the former a co-financing stake going forward. There were many articles and reports talking about this previous contract that had between the two studios. Basically, there were 5 films where Spider-Man would appear in, all of them produced by Kevin Feige, but 3 of them would be paid for by Marvel Studios and 2 of them would be paid for by Sony. So the 3 films that Marvel got Spider-Man in were Captain America Civil War, Avengers Endgame, and Avengers Infinity War. And obviously the 2 sort of standalone Spider-Man films, Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, they're the 2 Disney films. The article continues. There is a lot of webbing here, but it all comes down to money, and it's easy to understand why both sides refuse to give ground. Disney asked that future Spider-Man films be a 50-50 co-financing arrangement between studios, and there were discussions that this might extend to other films in the Spider-Man universe. Sony turned down that offer flat. Sources said that Sony, led by Tom Rothman and Tony Vinciquerra, have come with other configurations, but Disney didn't want to do that. But Sony did not want to share its biggest franchise. That's fair enough. Sure, Disney would be putting up half the funding, but the risk is in how much you're going to make back in profit. Disney wasn't at all interested in continuing the current terms, where Marvel receives in the range of 5% of first dollar gross, sources said. So I wasn't aware that they're actually getting any money out of the Sony movie. So this here says they get 5%. I thought they were getting 0%. And lastly here, the article says, sources said that Sony reasoned they will be fine without Feige. The creative template has been set on the Spider-Man films, and Watt and Holland are in place along with Amy Pascal, I don't know if that's a good thing, who became producer with Feige after she exited the executive suite after presiding over the previous Spider-Man iterations. So Amy Pascal, I'd say she's more of a bean counter type than a creative type. So yes, she was a producer with Feige, but Feige was the one behind the film. And I really don't believe this, that Sony actually thinks that, yeah, we've lost Feige, but we still have Amy Pascal on board. Now, it was rumored that she probably had a piece of the action. She owns a bit of the money that Spider-Man will actually make. That's probably confirmed here in a roundabout way, because she has left Sony and really shouldn't have anything to do with Spider-Man, but is still a producer in Spider-Man. So she obviously owns a piece of it. She's one of the people that will be in the negotiations, and she's probably one of the problems that Marvel has with trying to negotiate the new Spider-Man deal. But it does look like, at least according to this article, that most of the blame between not having a deal is actually Marvel or Disney. Disney's already dominating the entire box office. They've basically got a monopoly right now. The only film that has made a decent amount of money this year that isn't owned by Disney is this film here, is this actual Spider-Man film. So if this was part of the Disney empire, which it kind of, half is, it's part of the MCU, and again, Feige was overlooking it. The film was basically made by Disney, but Sony paid for it and Sony gets the benefits. So do we need more monopolistic power in the hands of Disney? I don't think we do, but a bit of a shame that Spider-Man will not be in the MCU anymore. So going forward, it'll be interesting to see what exactly will happen with the MCU. There was already some problems with a lot of the characters going away, and it looked like Spider-Man was one of the main characters. I mean, Spider-Man is basically the biggest name in Marvel. Maybe not the biggest name in the MCU, but Marvel Comics, I think Spider-Man is the biggest name they have. And there was a bit of an undertone in the last Spider-Man film, Spider-Man Far From Home, about how he was going to have to take over from Iron Man. It depends how you view those scenes as to how important it was, but that was a little bit of a push, it looked like to me at least. And it had Nick Fury in there. Is Nick Fury going to be allowed to be in future Spider-Man films? Is that a character that's shared across both of them, or is that just a MCU film or a non-Spider-Man film character? So there'll probably be no Nick Fury. Happy Hogan probably won't be in it anymore. His little romance of Aunt May might be done, so you're not going to get any crossover at all from obviously Spider-Man and the MCU films. Obviously the other way around won't happen. Spider-Man won't be appearing in the MCU. But as I was saying, what's going to happen with the actual MCU now? What have they got now? Black Widow's dead, although there is a Black Widow film coming up. Presumably that's from the past. Black Widow's gone. No one really cares about the Hulk. The Hulk film failed horribly, and there's never been any new sort of news about a new Hulk film, so who cares about the Hulk? Thor's, well, it's Lady Thor now, although I have seen some articles saying don't call her Lady Thor, but Thor's basically changed and may not be around anymore. Iron Man's dead, Captain America's basically dead or gone, so the entire Avengers are gone, and Spider-Man's unavailable now for contractual problems to actually come in there. So you've got a complete changing of the guard. So that's probably not good for the MCU. There's already sort of some problems with Iron Man going away. That's going to hurt the box office, with Captain America going away, with Thor being changed, with Black Widow gone, and now you don't even have Spider-Man to fill the void. So you've got a bit of a B team left, really, in the MCU. Now, they've got all of the Fox franchise stuff to get in there, the mutant stuff, so certainly lots of new things to get in there. But yeah, Endgame, this is the real end. The Avengers have been smashed and Spider-Man's gone. So not through any kind of plot line, but because these negotiations have failed. So a little bit of shame, I think, that they won't be able to cross these things over anymore, but everything comes down to money, and gee, how greedy is Disney? I mean, Disney absolutely dominating the box office, massive amount of money for Disney, and they just can't stand loaning out and getting access to Spider-Man. They want to get a bit of the Spider-Man money as well, and the money from other Spider-Man films, so such as Venom and whatever else they're going to start producing in the Spider-Man universe. I guess that's what they'll call it now, the Spider-Man universe over at Sony. So, greed. That's really where the problem is here. Here we've got the top 10 biggest movies of all time without inflation. And we can see the studio column there to the right-hand side of the title of the movies. BV's Buena Vista, that is Disney's distribution company, and Disney now owns Fox. So anything for BV or Fox is owned by Disney. So just going through the top 10 here, we've got Disney, Disney Paramount, Disney, Disney Universal, Disney. That's the actual top 10, and you can see that The Lion King absolutely smashing it out as well right now, $1.4 billion, and it's still got a fair way to go. It's within the realm of possibility that it could get near Jurassic World's number of 1.6. I think another $200 million from this point is quite difficult to do, but I think it's definitely going to beat Marvel's The Avengers. It's going to move up to number 7, but it's still possible. I haven't done a really deep look at it yet, that it could beat Jurassic World. There's no chance it's going to beat Avengers Infinity War, though, so it won't go to number 5, but it could be number 6, probably number 7th biggest film ever, in the same year that Avengers Endgame became the biggest film ever. So there have been articles going around about, just to do a big segue here, that the box office is failing and numbers going down. Well, what's basically happening is the big films are just as big as they ever were, if not bigger, but it's the medium films have really been destroyed and the small films. So Disney's hammering in everything and making heaps of money with these big franchises, but there is some truth to say that other films are struggling right now, but the franchises are not. They're smashing things out. And then in addition to that, you also had Captain Marvel got over $1 billion earlier in the year. Spider-Man's currently got over $1 billion. Toy Story 4's over $1 billion. Aladdin's over $1 billion. So there's plenty of films making huge, or at least very big amounts of money, but there's not the same kind of story with the total box office. So it may very well be that the box office for the year may be down from last year. That might happen. I don't know if it will or not, but it's going to have a large amount of very profitable films, which is sort of a bit of a shift away. But anyway, so going down the rest of the list here, down to Spider-Man Far From Home, we have in number 11 a Black Panther from Disney. Then we have Warner Brothers, Disney, Universal, Disney, Universal, Disney, Warner Brothers, Disney. PDW, I think, is DreamWorks, or Paramount DreamWorks will be that. NL, I think, is New Line Cinema. Then we have Sony with Spider-Man Far From Home. So complete domination from the big films on the biggest films of all times from Disney, and they want a little bit of Spider-Man Far From Home as well. Or at least the next, I shouldn't say Spider-Man Far From Home, the next Spider-Man movie. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.